give better advice.
I guess one of the things that I think about in terms of the will, and that's probably been illustrated already, is that the will has to come from within, and we can't force it on people. So what do we say? A couple of years ago I read an article in the Teachers, it was then Teachers Registration Board magazine, College of Teachers now it's called here, about a teacher who was found dead in her shower the morning after hit over the head by a very strong lad who had autism. And I love the work I do, and I really feel for parents who've had hassles with one of our 3 boys. I feel I can empathise, and I feel I've got experience in this area, but it really threw me into a bit of a dilemma. And to me, it does come back to resourcing. It comes back to good training. It comes back to the fact that we can't impose our value judgments on other people. And I think teachers who do work with children who have special needs, I mean, with that range, if we're asking them to stretch the range of children they work with beyond their capacity to cope, then also we have to recognise that and support them. Could you comment?
So it's a very challenging, and you didn't ask me the question, but it's a challenging statement. And, you know, I think, I'm sure there's many teachers here who are in the room who've had, you know, very stressful experiences in teaching not only the children who have disabilities, and it is, you know, a day-to-day challenge for all of us. The issue about the will and forcing the will, I really agree that it's very hard to force that on someone, and if you do back anyone into a corner and force that on them, they will often react in a very, you know, negative, aggressive way. My experience has been, and I'm not a parent who has a disability, but my experience of working in schools to try and encourage more inclusive practice is to first work with the people who do have the will. And I have found through the experiences that I've had that gradually some, not all, but some people come around because they see the positive benefits, and they do become more involved, you know, in smaller and smaller ways that will grow. And that's why I think it's something that we really need to give time. That's why I suppose my story was about the history that we've had, and it's very hard to challenge a traditional way of doing education in our society overnight. And it's been, you know, a long, slow, challenging journey. So I don't think it's something that we can change overnight. And even though in Cairns, for example, they did close the special school, it was a very sort of small community. There was a lot of goodwill, you know, from a strong parent advocacy group, and there was a lot of work that was put into professional development for teachers, and for teachers to work together and to people to come together to, you know, solve those challenges. And it was something that we really struggled, you know, with. It was a real challenge. It was very stressful. It wasn't easy. You know, I might have said that there were a lot of really positive stories, but many times it was very challenging. But I suppose the situation was that we worked together, and not everyone was a success story. You know, there was one child in particular that had really challenging behaviour, and we did have a success story there.
Just want to quickly comment about the issue about it being a choice. Would we allow the choice for teachers to say, I don't teach girls? And I mean, it's the law in this country that children with a disability are allowed to go to a regular school. Now, to actually say that no, that's a teacher's choice to actually teach or not teach a child, I don't find acceptable.
Hi, hello. My name is Lynn Walmsley, and I'm here as an individual and as and I have spent 14 years with Queensland Parents for People with a Disability. And it's hard to know where to begin, but I'll try and keep it brief. I started out having experiences very similar to yours, and it was so painful, and I was actually, of course, this is before we changed the placement policy. I spent 2 years in a parent-preferred placement with a principal who did not want us there, and I decided to leave because the visiting teacher told me that she could go in every Monday and she could set up things, but she had no control over what happened behind her back. And when we made the decision to leave that school, my son said, because what you said really resonated with what happened to me, when we left that school, my son got into a place where he was much more welcome and had some wonderful experiences, not all good, but much better. He said to me, my son had started hating school, a child who loved school, who today is one of the best behaved and most enthusiastic students in the whole school, did not want to learn in grade 4. And it turned out that the teacher, he would say to the teacher, put his hand up for some help, and she would say to him, "What's the problem now, Robert?" And so he didn't tell me until after we left, and he said, so I thought to myself, why would I bother? And I've had a lot of experiences, and I have learnt about the subtlety of discrimination. And for 14 years I have done everything in my power to improve the education system in Queensland. It took us 10 years to get the education standards. It took 10 years or more to remove that policy and to remove ascertainment and to remove the enrolment policy. And it's been a very long, hard journey. And with the current system now, I'm very encouraged by things like the fact that Caboolture East was turned into a completely inclusive school in 2003 to 2006 by a principal who is himself disabled, and he had a model that he developed himself, which was aligning teachers with specific skills to children with particular needs. And it was incredibly successful, and then the education department has slightly dismantled it because they used the existing resources to do that. I'd just like to comment too on the workshops that we have run, that we've had Bob Jackson run for us at QPBD. And I just wanted to point out the key things from that is that we ran workshops for teachers as well as parents. And the teachers wanted to learn all they could about inclusion. And then they told us that it's very hard because they then go back to these schools where the principals don't want to know. And I was on the Ministerial Advisory Committee for Inclusive Education for 3 years, and one of the key recommendations, that paper, that committee finished a couple of years ago, one of the key recommendations was that principals all be educated about inclusive education. They're still not getting that education. Another thing I'd just like to point out is that Bob taught me, myself, in my journey, which has been quite a challenge, but is getting better and better all the time, to always give positive feedback when they get it right. They get it wrong a lot of the time, but we have a very good relationship now in which the principal says to me, any issue you have, I want to know about it straight away. And we have some great things happen, and we have some still very frustrating things happen. But I have learned how to give positive feedback, and it works wonders. And I'll leave it there for now, but I could go on forever.
Just a bit of an ad too for your thing. Everyone's got a copy of that. So the 29th of April there'll be a lit review circulated together with a position statement of QPPD. I certainly recommend that.